came from the faraway village of Stoneham. And one of my little rituals when I lived over by Keewaydin Lake was to take a little walk, usually in the morning, but sometimes twice a day on a nice day, down the little dirt road across from my house that wound around the lake shore. And I started doing it for physical health, but I found pretty quickly that it was just as good for mental health to just take that moment and to be around nature. And I tried to do it all year long, really take in the changing seasons. During my time there, that little road had only one couple who were year-round residents, so it was pretty quiet. And sometime, maybe a year after I started this, some other folks started building a house down by the very end of the road. And it turned out that our little neighborhood had a lot of professional musicians living there. And some of you know Sam Guarnaccia and his wife Paula, who have been here to visit us and who have been active in things in our community. And it turns out my new neighbors were Sam and Paula. Sam, who is a composer who writes big pieces of music. And I had the amazing pleasure the other night of hearing one of his monumental compositions, and that's the only word that I think even comes close to describing that experience. I have to tell you that music, to me, often feels like another day at the office. Of course I enjoy it, you know that, but it's very rare that hearing a piece of music, or I have to say in this case, experiencing a piece of music, really moves me very deeply. And it's always an unexpected pleasure when that happens. What I heard on Friday night was a piece of music by one of our neighbors right here in this community, titled The Emergent Universe Oratorio. And it's a piece for a full symphony orchestra, a large choir, soloists, a narrator, and in the case of this performance, on the last movement of the piece, it's about an hour and a half long. On the last movement of the piece, the group was joined by 140 high school-aged singers who were present for a choral learning festival. This all took place on the campus of Skidmore College in Saratoga Springs. And from the very beginning of the evening, there was an energy in the room. And I think that came from 140 teenagers in the room of a classical music concert who were not just there on a school trip, but who were there because they were deeply invested in what was happening. It was really magical before even the first note began. And then this piece of music commenced, telling the story of the universe, its creation from both a scientific and a philosophical viewpoint. And as it progressed, the libretto, some of it being original words by Sam and his team of collaborators, other being writings of scientists and poems of philosophers, started to take shape to tell us about our place in this universe, both scientifically and philosophically. How, from an elemental standpoint, the stars are our ancestors. And you really started to feel the sense of belonging. But of course, you know part of our contemporary story. We live on a planet that's in trouble, environmentally. And I don't need to go into the detail of what's happening in the animal kingdom, the plant kingdom, ecosystems collapsing. And yet, through the lens of music that's speaking to us, to feel our place among this is really profound. And in a particularly poignant moment in the piece, when people all through the concert hall were deeply moved, some even crying, where the libretto talks about some of the damage that's happening and specifically names species of animals and of plant life that we have lost recently or are losing. After that lament comes this piece of writing by Wendell Berry to remind us that nature is regenerative. And it's a piece of writing called The Peace of the Wild Things. Maybe you've read it or know it before. But in the context of that moment, in this piece of music, it just jumped out so profoundly, and I thought that if there was nobody signed up for the Peace Candle today, I'd bring it and I'd share the words with you. I wish I could have brought 100 singers in a symphony orchestra, but we'll have to wait on that. But here from Wendell Berry, The Peace of the Wild Things. When despair for the world grows in me, and I wake in the night at the least sound, in fear of what my life and my children's lives may be, I go and lie down where the wood drake rests in his beauty on the water, and the great heron feeds. I come into the peace of the wild things who do not tax their lives with forethought of grief. I come into the presence of still water, and I feel above me the day-blind stars waiting with their light. For a time, I rest in the grace of the world and am free. And that's my thought for the Peace Candle today. If you know Sam and Paula, if you see them in the community, do offer congratulations to them on what was really remarkable happening. And I hope that someday we can plan a performance of this piece of music somewhere at easy driving distance here in Maine, because it really is a profound experience. And thank you for letting me share my little story and this thought from Wendell Berry today.